we've had good practices. Our guys have worked hard and really, I think, are embracing the challenge of our next game in Oklahoma State, who's a really good team. They're one of the top scoring teams in the country. They play really aggressively, have a lot of different weapons, and they're a really good rebounding team as well. So just in the process of getting ready for them.
When you were putting together the freshman class, how much focus did you put on looking at a point guard who had more experience than these guys who were trying to become point guards? Did you have that opportunity?
Yes and no. It's tricky because everyone affects everyone else in recruiting. And you know, we made the decision that we would recruit Andrew Jones as a guy that would have an opportunity to play some minutes there, and not that he would only play there, you know, but because he's a guy that could play multiple positions. But that was so everyone kind of impacts everyone else. If you bring in another point guard, you know, that can have an impact.
So other guys would maybe go someplace else, seeing him coming here?
It could, and you know, remember you got Jacob Young too, who, although he's played mostly off the ball, you know, he's played, you know, some point guard in the past and played a little bit for us this year. So those were the two guards we signed. I think, you know, any freshman coming in here, it was going to be a real learning curve in general, and then particularly at that position.
Hey, just so I know in my mind, I've checked off that I've asked you this on the record, but when you came at that time, then at post-April, most of the guys were kind of locked up to get, right? At least that's how I remember the recruiting.
Yeah.
At that time.
Well, at that time, you say when I first got the job here?
Right.
Yeah, at that time, you know, Miles had put his name in the draft, so we on paper had, I believe, 2 scholarships, and Isaiah was considering putting his name in the draft after his sophomore year, and if you remember, he was up in the air for probably about the first month I was here. So we realized if he left at that time that, you know, that was going to be a need for us right away. So we actually looked at some guys. Then we signed Tevin. So and Isaiah came back, and we had 1 scholarship remaining. You know, there was a couple guys that we were really interested in that we just didn't get. You know, that late recruiting when you first get a job it's different. You know, it's kind of a microwave deal, and so yeah, that was the situation that year.
And then going forward though, the top point guards.
Mm-hmm.
When I remember, they were already kind of locked up.
Oh, you're talking about for the next class? Yeah, I mean it's.
Fox was one of them.
Fox was one of them. We tried hard with Fox. I mean, he pretty much eliminated us early, and so there was some other guys that we tried on. But you know, we made the decision, you know, that we felt really good about Andrew and Jacob, and Andrew didn't sign until the spring. He committed in December.
A lot of people project Andrew as becoming a point guard. Is that correct?
Yeah, he will. He will. He just, you know, he's going through being a freshman at that position and learning, you know, what goes into it. And also, it's one thing to be a freshman on maybe you're a senior-laden team or an older team like last year, but it's not like he has a ton of experience around him when he's at that spot.
What steps are still there for him to take?
Oh, I mean, we do what we call point guard U, which is just times that we spend together with the point guards, and there's a lot of steps, and this is was going to be the case for anyone. It's the case for Snoop. It's the case for any young point guard or guy that wants to play spot minutes at that position. I think having an understanding first and foremost of what you need to do to help the other four guys on the floor, offensively and defensively, starting with your communication and just your ability to lead and be a floor general. That's a big step to learn, and it's not something that you don't take that whole step by itself. It's incremental. There's a lot of other examples, little things like if I'm passing you the ball and you're a good shooter, if I hit you in the chin with the ball, that's a really good pass. But if I throw it maybe to your left or your right or down by your shins, you're less likely to make the shot. So just the little things like that, I think these guys are going to continue to learn as we focus on it and are always in their ear about it, to do that every single time, be more consistent with it.
We've seen Davis shoot better than he has this year.
Yeah.
Is Young also a better shooter than he's shown at times?
He has been in practice. Through the first 6 weeks of practice, he shot over 50% from three. And he's missed some good looks this year. He made a couple the other night, which I thought was a good sign. He made a couple threes at Kansas State. So yeah, I think he'll make a lot of shots in his career here. And Jacob, he cares so much that when he's not making shots, he gets really down and upset with himself. But he's a very hard worker. He's been in the gym nonstop, and I think that's a good sign for him for the future.
Well, that's about Tevin. It took him 38 minutes to crack the score sheet against Kent State. He had two tough-looking air balls.
Yeah.
At Kent State, then he got the third one to fall. Is he a guy that, of all these guys, the way it's shaking out, if he's off, is this thing going to have a hard time?
Well, if he's off and some other guys are off, so it all kind of plays off of each other. But I think for Tevin, he got off to a really good start this year. He's gotten a lot better in so many different areas of the game from his freshman year. I mean, now that we're starting to play teams that we played last year, you go back and you watch the tape and from last year's games, you say, wow, Tevin looks so different. I mean, just looks different. But I think he's no different than anyone else in that for him to shoot a really good percentage from the field, it's about getting the best shots he can get. And, the thing about Tevin is he's always been, watching him in high school and AAU, he's always been a guy that can make some high degree of difficulty shots. But last year, I think what he learned is at the college level, those don't go in as much. And so, I mean, he shot, I believe it was 30% last year from the field. And he's gotten much, much better. But he needs to continue to, work to find ways to get great shots. And the other thing is, two other things is, one, that's part of what we talked about with point guard play. Guys finding him at the right time, hitting him with the right pass. And then he's going to be the focal point of a lot of scouting reports. So they're going to try to take away his first option and make him go to something else.
Coach, you've mentioned a couple of times how you don't like to see this team get bummed out and other things. I think you used the word about not getting bummed out quite a bit. Or it's not going their way, especially after losses. Through the last couple of weeks or week and a half or so? Are you seeing maybe this team, start to develop some resiliency in terms of letting those things kind of roll off and looking forward to the next game?
Well, that's a great question, and we're going to find out, aren't we? That's really going to be the, for us, the key is, can you have, or you use the word resiliency, that's really what it's about, because it's not always going to go your way during a game. There's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be runs, there's going to be calls that you might not like, there's going to be missed shots at times. But, to use the Kansas State game as an example, if we can negate a couple negative runs during the game, it puts us in a much, much better position. And then if you come up short like we did, then, can you have the same level of resolve to say, let's do X, Y, and Z better, because there's certainly a lot of things we can do better, and, go out and approach practice, and then just as more importantly, the next game with even a higher level of fight. So listen, it's always easier for young people, or I think for anyone, to take a great approach, feel good about everything when you're coming off a win, or when you're coming off a bunch of wins. But life doesn't always work that way. So we're definitely going to find that out.
Even though you knew going in that you were going to have a very young team, did you see the team being where it is at this point this season?
Record-wise?
Yeah.
I tried, I learned a long time ago to try not to anticipate, those sorts of things, because I used to go into season, when I was assistant coach, I'd go into the season and I would look at the schedule. I'd say, well, we're going to win that one. We're going to win that one. That one might be tough, But it just never works out that way. And so I learned, even before I became a head coach, not to do that. And I knew more, probably more so than normal years, this was going to be a season where we definitely, you definitely don't want to do that. But looking at our first 13 games, I mean, the games that we've lost, particularly recently, our expectation going into those games was to go get those games. I mean, it always is, but you go back and you look at the tape, there's a lot of things where you say, man, if we would have just did this, if we would just did that, or one extra make or one extra free throw or whatever it may be. But the reality is, if you don't win the game, then you got to focus on the next one. So our record could have been anything, and I would have told you I really didn't anticipate it, because it's not your job as a coach to anticipate a record. It's your job as a coach to focus on building your team and getting them to own the process of what goes into being successful. And obviously we have a long way to go with that, so that's really been what I've been obsessed with.
Just out of curiosity, do you ever talk to them about what other teams are doing? Maybe first night, TCU really took it to Kansas. The West Virginia Oklahoma State game obviously was a little high scoring. Not Baylor looked okay. I mean, do you talk with them about that, or just how the league is overall? The only other game that we talked about from that first set of games was Oklahoma State, West Virginia. I think for right now, these guys, their scope needs to be us and then our opponent, our immediate opponent. Obviously, we're going to play all these teams as we go, but I think it would be a mistake to try to go much further than that.
Coach, the last couple of games, it seems like that this team, at least like late in games against Kansas State and Kansas State, seems to play a lot looser, a lot freer.
Mm-hmm.
But they're behind, 8 or 9, 10 points late in the game. What do you, but it seems like they play a lot looser, a lot freer once they get in that position, late in the game than they do the first 30, 35 minutes of the game. What do you make of that?
Well, what I make of that is it's a great example of what we can be if we're not playing with avoidance goals. You know, if we're playing to go after it, or playing to go get it, if we're not worried about what might go wrong. Because that's what happens when you get down and you know, maybe there's 2-3 minutes left on the clock like there was at Kansas State. It's, hey, let's just go after it, and they did that. I think there's lessons to be learned there, and that's something that we've talked about as a team, and we're going to continue to talk about, is if we can approach the game at any time on the clock with the aggressiveness and the nothing to lose mentality that we did in those times, then I think we got a chance to be better. I know we have a chance to be better, but it's a matter of going and carrying that over. But you're right.
You obviously haven't seen that much of Mo, but what do you expect him to do when he comes back, and what role do you want him to?
Well, it's just a matter of we got to get him back to 100%, because until he can really move the way he needs to move, and again, Mo was never, he's not Kerwin Roach in terms of athleticism, but he's right now, I think about 80-85% in terms of how he's moving. But what he can do is he can make shots. He's a smart player. He's got some experience, and he's a real team-oriented guy.
2-3 last ones.
Coach, what else can you throw at these guys in terms of, I don't know, changing the attitudes, getting them to believe in themselves and not thinking about the records or the last 2 games? And how do you get them to really believe that we're not pushing the panic button, our backs may be against the wall, but we can still do this, and let's go out and make some moves?
To be honest, the best way to do that is to focus inward on our team, and that's for us as coaches first and foremost, and also for our players, because all that stuff that you just talked about, that typically comes from the outside, and that it's human nature to have an awareness of that stuff, but you don't have to dwell on it.
Do these guys have the heart and determination you believe in them to get it going and to play the style that you want and to please you with their effort and their attitudes?
They definitely have it in them.
Last one.
And looking at Oklahoma State coach,
Mhm.
and a new coach, what do you see in these guys coming in here tomorrow night?
They do a lot of really good things. They score the ball a lot. They play fast. Really one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the country, I think number 4 statistically. They've got 2 really, really good guards. And they're very, very different from each other. Evans is just a dynamic attacking point guard that's great in pick and roll and can really pass it and finds guys and can score it, finishes at the rim, shooting over 50% from 3. And then Forte is, been in the league forever, shoots it as well as anybody, and is just a guy that is good at making you pay out there on the floor. And then they've got a few other guys that have really, really gotten better and improved, and I think those players plus their staff deserve a lot of credit for that. Carroll is playing really, really well. Leighton Hammond's had a great game against us last year up there. He's always dangerous. They've got a nice team, and then Coach Underwood does a really good job and has a good system. Go ahead.
Did you see Evans' effort against UNC in the Maui invite, Coach, and will he be one of the better players that you guys will see this season?
Yeah, I think he's. Yeah, we've watched all their stuff, and he's really, really good. I think he's a guy that is one of the better guards in the country for sure. There's so many great point guards this year in college basketball, but I don't think he takes a backseat to anybody.